So, if you remember last episode, I had travelled just over 17,000 miles, which is almost 28,000 kilometres from Melbourne to Ushuaia, which turns out is almost 3/4 of the way around the world. So, it's a little bit of a long trip. And once I reached Ushuaia, I boarded a ship. But this was just the start of my journey. I still had quite a way to go. So we started to travel down the Beagle Channel, and I went to sleep pretty early that night because I was still recovering from jet lag, so I was pretty much out like a light early on. But some hours later, in the middle of the night, I was suddenly woken up when objects start to fly around the cabin. We'd just reached the Drake. The Drake Passage is the roughest patch of sea in the world. Basically, it's where the Southern Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean all meet. So if you're wondering what this has to do with objects flying around my cabin in the middle of the night, here's some footage I shot the next day. From memory, I think those waves were about 3 meters tall. Needless to say, I made sure everything in my cabin was secured away after that. I'm also extremely happy to report that apparently I don't get seasick, unlike about 98% of the other passengers. Breakfast that first morning, we were at sea, was pretty much deserted. I think there was about 4 of us there. I was feeling fine. I had a big plate of greasy bacon and eggs, which you're not supposed to do in rough seas, but I wasn't feeling the least bit sick, which was very fortunate. There were other people coming in and out of breakfast. They would usually come in, sit down for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, not look very well, and then quickly make their way back to their cabin. So that first day we were at sea, the ship was pretty much deserted. Apart from coming across the occasional crew member or one of maybe 3 or 4 other passengers, the ship was pretty much like a ghost ship. So I went exploring, looking around different parts of the ship. At one point I ended up on the back deck and attempted to take photos of some of the seabirds which were following our ship. This is probably the best shot I got. It's not too bad. But considering the birds were moving and the ship most definitely was moving, it was extremely hard to get a good shot. Basically, if you could get a bird in frame, which was hard enough, by the time you focused, the bird was gone. So I got many blurry shots of birds or birds moving out of frame, and it was very challenging, but a bit of fun. Anyway, here's the view from the back deck. A little while after that, I made the mistake of going up to the top deck. I was only up there for about a minute, and it was fucking terrifying. You see, the higher up you are in the ship, the more movement there is, and yeah, it was pretty scary up there. It was moving a hell of a lot, so I very quickly made my way down the stairs and didn't go back up there that day. If you're wondering what it's like to sleep when it's that rough, I actually found it really enjoyable. I'm guessing you would imagine you'd be rocked from side to side, but what you might not realise is that you also slide up and down the bed. So it's kind of a random combination of side to side and up and down. And I found it actually rather relaxing in a strange way. I don't know if many other passengers did, but I actually found it quite enjoyable. The second day at sea was a lot calmer. The waves were nowhere near as bad, and maybe about 50% of my fellow passengers were out and about, so there was more people to talk to, a bit more to do. So I spent the day getting to know a lot of different people from different places from around the world, from Germany, England, some fellow Aussies, Americans, Canadians, guy from Israel. But the real highlight of that second day at sea was later that night. So for the last 2 days at sea, I hadn't seen anything around the ship except for water. But now, in the distance on the horizon, there appeared a small shape which slowly grew bigger over the next hour, and it was joined by other shapes appearing on the horizon, which also grew in size as we got closer. So these following photos were taken sometime between 10 o'clock at night and midnight. And you're probably thinking it's fairly light for that time of night. Well, these photos actually turned out fairly dark because I was using a fairly fast shutter speed. You see, the sun that evening kind of touched the horizon and went partially down and then just stopped, leaving us in a permanent kind of dusk. This was the darkest it got for the rest of the trip until we were returning. So we never really had any night from this point onwards. So I'm guessing most of you have probably figured out where I am at this point, but just in case you haven't, I really recommend you stick around for next episode, because that's where all the really cool stuff is. Yeah, trust me, you're going to want to see it.